Why say no to processed foods? We humans have finally found the best and the sweetest way to kill ourselves. Yes, we have allowed science to play with our lives yet again through the evil hands of processed foods. One fine day, I began to make a list of all the organic foods that I have in my kitchen store. Sadly, a hefty 90% of all the foods were processed and far from organic. White rice, cornmeal, flour, white flour, bread, buns, muffins, bagels, pita bread, macaroni, pasta, cakes, pies, cookies, couscous, jams, canned vegetables, breakfast cereal, cheese, yogurt, and mayonnaise are all the foods that make up our breakfast, lunch, supper, and dinner meals. Are they all organic? We are highly mistaken if we think so, because these are all the processed foods. And should I mention that these are just a few items from a long list of processed eatables. The time has come for us to understand that these processed foods are slow murderers. It is time to completely boycott and say no to the consumption of processed foods. It is a fact that resisting the urge to open the delicious can of Pringles or soda pop is more than tough, particularly now that we have become highly addicted to these forms of processed foods. However, our lives are more precious and valuable than sacrificing them to processed foods. It is important that we realize how they are affecting our minds, bodies, and even souls, because whoever said you are what you eat was an honest man. The answer why we should not eat processed foods is simple. They are harmful to our bodies because they are very low on nutrients and fiber, provide us with zero energy, and develop several serious diseases in our bodies. They contain phosphates that ultimately leads to the destruction of our bones and organs. Moreover, they also ruin our digestive systems because they are not really foods. Finally, they also tend to destroy our mind. Let us first look at how processed foods have a destroying influence on our bodies and are one of the primary causes for producing disease. That delicious bag of chips or soda might seem very appetizing to us, but the truth stands that they really were stored at room temperature for a long period of time. Before they got to the supermarket, they were first stored in the warehouse, then wholesalers, then stockrooms, and finally reached the market. And all this time, these processed foods really need a lot of work to help them stay fresh. Here come in the famous preservatives, different types of chemicals, food colors, and whatnot that it reaches us in good taste. So do those chemicals let these foods stay healthy? Anybody with a sane mind would say no. These preservatives and chemicals are a leading cause for the development of coronary heart disease, strokes, cancers, and diabetes. These top 4 fatal diseases have been traced right to the usage of industrialized and processed foods. The processed foods also contain phosphates that damage our bones and organs to a great degree. The proponent of processed foods claim that these phosphates simply augment textures, taste, and the shelf life of these foods. They also say that the term often used as processed for such food is false because all the foods that are cooked, fermented, mashed, frozen, canned, or baked are in fact processed in some way. And that does not make them unhealthy. However, the reality says otherwise. These additives are famous for causing various health problems such as rapid aging, weak bones, and kidney destruction. I recently found a strange personal correlation between eating a bag of chips and having a weird stomach ache after. When I began research in this area, I came to know the horrifying ways in which processed foods, such as chips and crackers, are in fact ruining our digestive systems. How are they doing so? These processed foods are ripped off of their nutrition, natural fiber, vitamins, enzymes, and other such nutrients. This way, these foods are fully responsible for wreaking havoc on our digestive tracts. Continued consumption of processed foods throws our entire digestive system off balance, destroying our body's beneficial bacteria and exposing our system to different kinds of dangerous infections. Now we can easily say that the gummy bears and Pringles can are a literal poison for our systems. These should be evidence enough for us not to consume processed foods anymore. So are these processed foods only destroying our bodies physically? That doesn't sound so terrible because we have magical medicines available to counter their influences. But here's a hard but proven fact for all of us. Processed foods do not only have a bad influence on our bodies physically, but they also tend to have harmful effects on our minds. Have you ever suffered from brain fogging or had difficulty concentrating or thinking normally? There are strong chances that your diet is responsible for all of this. And more specifically, processed foods are responsible for this. A recent study by Oxford University should be enough to warn processed foods addicts. The research shows that consumption of junk food leads people to become irritable and angry. On the other hand, organic and whole foods are full of beneficial nutrients that help level out our moods and sustaining our energy, which leads us to feel more collected and calm. The harms that processed foods carry for our bodies and minds are so many that it is impossible to discuss all of them in one essay. After researching over them, I am sure of one thing. Processed foods are not really foods at all. Real foods grow old or rot after some time, while processed foods can retain their color, texture, and even taste for months at one go. This proves that processed foods are really synthetic and heavy modifications and processing is necessary to make it taste good and like real food. If we are still bent on consuming processed foods instead of organic, nobody else is to blame for this irresponsible attitude but us. We owe a lot to our inner organs and various systems. The best we can do is provide them with healthy and nutritious food instead of processed one. It is about time we say no to processed foods now and forever.